Lone wolves. It's a moniker, a media name that has been created to explain or to try to explain these Muslim terrorists who seem to come out of nowhere with no connection to ISIS. How does it even happen? I'm going to tell you. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. Welcome to the program, friend. We are in the middle of a 24-episode series showing our serial documentary, What Would Muhammad Do? We do not have the time to show all episodes, and we don't have the time to show every portion of every episode, but you're getting a good bit of it. In today's episode, we're going to look at the so-called phenomenon of lone wolves, and I hope that it makes sense to you, and I also hope that you see the danger that we're in with the FBI's current policy regarding so-called profiling. Let's focus for a moment on the lone wolves of Islam, or perhaps better said, the lone wolves of Muhammad. Lone wolf is a phrase it's a moniker that was recently created for Muslim murderers and assassins who seem to be acting on their own. Okay, it's not a phrase that is in the Quran, it's not in the Hadith, it's not in the biographies of Muhammad, but it's a name that law enforcement officials, politicians, media have latched onto. And for the sake of discussion, let's talk about these lone wolves. When we did the 10-part documentary, we had a ton of stories that we simply didn't use. All right, I wasn't cherry-picking stories for that documentary. There are tons of stories like them throughout the Hadith, throughout the biographies of Muhammad. And it's important for us to focus on one of those stories right now because it'll show you what a lone wolf in Muhammad's day did. Now, again, for the sake of discussing what a lone wolf is in today's jargon, it's somebody who, for example, is not on the radar of law enforcement. Maybe they have no known connection to an Islamic terrorist group. Perhaps they did not leave the country for training. We see that one a lot. There was no suspicion of travel or no worrisome travel, as if those elements were required for a Muslim to become a Muslim terrorist. So I want to focus on one person in the biographies whose name was Amr bin Umayyah. Amr bin Umayyah was told by Muhammad and one other young man who is unnamed, he's one of the Ansar, they were sent by Muhammad to murder Abu Sufyan. You will remember that Abu Sufyan was the one who had the large caravan that Muhammad and his men were trying to get when they stumbled into the Battle of Badr. Abu Sufyan is the one who converted literally with a knife to his throat in Muhammad's presence when he was granted safe passage. Well, before his conversion, Muhammad literally sent these two men to murder him. Here's what the biography says. The Prophet said, "Go to Abu Sufyan and kill him." That's Muhammad dispatching assassins. All right, they went. And by the way, the companion, the unnamed companion, did not have a camel. His leg was injured. And so Amr kind of complained that he had to carry this guy on his camel because Amr had his own camel. And there was tension in the story. You can see that there's tension between them because the unnamed guy was not all that swift and Amr was a committed assassin. Today, many so-called Christian intellectuals believe that the God of evolution used billions of years of death and destruction to evolve the bodies of the first human beings. Then, they simply declare the theory of evolution as fact to justify their unproven scientific fallacies. By the grace of God, more and more Catholics are rejecting this modern-day mythology in favor of the traditional doctrine of creation, as recorded by the Bible and believed and taught by all the fathers and doctors of the church. To find out how sound theology and natural science confirm the sacred history of Genesis, Visit the Colby Center for the Study of Creation, and be sure to check out our bookstore, which has titles like I Have Spoken to You from Heaven, A Catholic Defense of Creation in 6 Days, and A Catholic Assessment of Evolutionary Theory. That's the Colby Center for the Study of Creation. So they go to Mecca, and Amr just wants to get to Abu Sufyan's house and murder him and get out. But the other man said, well, no, let's circumambulate. Let's go around the Kaaba 7 times and we'll have a couple of prayers. And the guy said, look, I'm going to be seen. They know me here. I'm from here. And I'm going to be spotted. And he said, no, let's pray. Come on, let's walk and pray. So they did. And sure enough, he was spotted. And the people said, it's Amr, Umayyah. He's a bad man. One of the texts says, and I quote, before Islam, he was a cutthroat and desperado. So this is somebody who had a bad reputation as being a killer, being a troublemaker, being a criminal, and he converted to Islam and he brought those talents with him, and Muhammad was only all too glad to have them. So they spot Amr, they recognize him, so the men take off. And they were not able to get to Abu Sufyan. They had to run for their lives, and they left the city and they went and they hid in a cave. So search parties are out looking for them, all right? And a man riding a horse was just walking closer and closer to the cave where they were hiding, and the assassin decided he was not going to let this man get close, so he ran out and stabbed him. And he screamed so loud that the Meccans could hear him. They came running and they found him bleeding to death, and as he was dying, he told them who did it. And they said, we knew that he was up to no good, and they took away his body. So the two men hid for 2 more days in the cave, and then they tried to make their escape. Amr was spotted again, and 2 men followed him until he outran them on foot. And he told his buddy with the injured leg, he said, look, you just take the camel, you go back to Medina, and give news to Muhammad about our failed effort. So I think that he was just sick of having to deal with him, and so he said, take the camel and go. So Amr hides alone in a cave now with his bow and his arrows. And a one-eyed shepherd came in. This was a guy who used this cave regularly to take care of his sheep at night, and he figured out that someone was in there, and he said, who's in there? And the murderer lied. He said, one of the Banu Bakr. And the shepherd said, oh, I'm from the Banu Bakr too. So he came in, they chatted for a while. He laid down and got comfortable, and then the shepherd lifted up his voice and he began to sing. I won't be a Muslim as long as I live, nor heed to their religion give. This is what the text says. I said to myself, you will soon know. As soon as the Badu was asleep and snoring, I got up and killed him in a more horrible way than any man has been killed. I put the end of my bow in his sound eye. Then I bore down on it until I forced it out at the back of his neck. Then I came out like a beast of prey and took the high road like an eagle hastening until I came out at a village. So this man is recounting his story with great zeal. Look, I killed a man. I stuck my bow down into his eye and pushed on it. It would have been just scraping out his brains and popped out of the back of his neck. So he leaves the dead man there. He goes and he's trying to get back to Mecca. And again, 2 Meccans recognize him. And the assassin demanded their surrender. He's on a roll now. So they said, there's 2 of us, one of you, we're not surrendering. So he took his arrow, boom, and killed one of them immediately. And the other one said, okay, I surrender. So he tied his hands with his bowstring and led him to Medina. And as he came, so he goes to find Muhammad. Now, by now, people in Medina probably thought that Amr was dead or captured. So when people saw him coming at a distance, they went running to Muhammad to tell him that his assassin, the man he sent out to assassinate Abu Sufyan, was still alive, and he was coming with a prisoner. Here's what the text says. I had tied my prisoner's thumbs together with my bowstring. The messenger of Allah looked at him and laughed so hard that his back teeth could be seen. Then he questioned me, and I told him what had happened. "Well done," Muhammad said, and prayed for me to be blessed. Now, think of these elements in light of so-called lone wolves. We have 3 dead men, total strangers to Amr, not even the victim that Muhammad wanted murdered, all right? They were just men who were not submitting to Muhammad. Note that Muhammad did not rebuke Amr for killing any of them, especially the man in the cave. He didn't say to Amr, "Well, why didn't you try and tell him about Islam? Why didn't you try and lead him to Islam?" No, he just murdered the man. And Muhammad did not rebuke him. Also, note that these were not military targets or military assets of Muhammad's enemies. Note that Muhammad laughed when he saw him coming with the prisoner. He laughed. This was joyful to Muhammad. That's the kind of man that Muhammad done. Note that Muhammad said, "Well done," when he told him about murdering these 3 individuals. He didn't say, "You weren't sent to kill these men. What have you done?" Muhammad prayed for the man, for Amr, to be blessed. Have Muslim terrorists hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam? Or is there more to the story? The answer lies in the life of one man, Muhammad, the founder of Islam. Muslim terrorists see themselves inside a 1,400-year-old story, a narrative that focuses on specific events in the life of Muhammad. We are going to look at Muhammad's life using their most sacred literature. We will look at Muhammad at the Battle of Badr. We'll see him deal with those who mock him. We'll see the times when he used deception. We'll witness Muhammad's anti-Semitism. And yes, we will discuss Muhammad and his teachings concerning sex, slavery, and jihad. Friend, if you want to understand Islamic terrorism, get this series today. Muhammad was just so delighted that Amr, even though he didn't kill Abu Sufyan like he was supposed to, he was so delighted with that this man murdered 3 total strangers, completely innocent people whose crime was that they were not Muslims. And Muhammad then prayed for him to be blessed. Now, tie all of this together with so-called lone wolves of today. They are often killing total strangers. No regard for innocent human life, just like Amr, the man that Muhammad said, "Well done" to, the man that Muhammad laughed for and prayed for. Today's lone wolves are killing people who are not submitting to Muhammad's religion, just like Amr did, the man that Muhammad said, "Well done" to, just like the man that Muhammad laughed for and prayed for. Today's lone wolves are killing people who are not military assets of Muhammad's enemies, just like Amr did, just like the man that Muhammad laughed for. So ISIS, again, think about today, ISIS does not rebuke lone wolves for killing innocent people, just like Muhammad did not rebuke Amr for killing the man in the cave. ISIS and other Muslim terrorists don't say, "Well, why didn't you try and bring them to Islam?" Just like the story of Amr. Muhammad didn't say, "Why didn't you try and bring them to Islam?" Muhammad said, "Well done." Muhammad prayed for him. Muhammad laughed. ISIS laughs. They embrace these murderers as heroes. And again, ISIS, like Muhammad, when they hear word of one of these so-called lone wolves murdering, what do? They send out a press release, they print in their magazine, Dabiq, they say, "Well done." They don't say, "Well, you weren't sent to kill these men. What have you done?" Just like Muhammad, they pray for these murderers to be blessed with heaven. So, where do our law enforcement officials think that these lone wolves are getting radicalized? Any literate Muslim man can read Ibn Ishaq, pages 673 to 675. They can read Al-Tabari, volume 7, pages 147 to 150, where this story is recorded. And they can see this exact storyline. They can see the exact marching orders from Muhammad. They see the template, the blueprint to murder non-Muslims and to have Muhammad laugh with joy and to tell them well done if they commit a murder, and they can envision Muhammad praying for them to go to paradise and receive 72 virgins for unending sexual pleasure. Friend, I guarantee you, law enforcement friends, especially, please hear me, the lone wolf Islamic murderers throughout the world are reading this story and others like it in the Hadith and the biographies of Muhammad. And they are getting their marching orders, they're getting their call to jihad right from the mouth of Muhammad, the founder of Islam. But sadly, many, thankfully not all, but many of our law enforcement officials have been so, I hate to say the word, but I've said it, they've been disemboweled, they've been castrated by sensitivity training or by political correctness, or they've given some other political handicap or malady that's been put on them by misguided superiors or policies like the FBI's policy in America that forbids looking at religious texts. Well, where do you think they're getting radicalized? All you have to do is read these texts, and the facts are right there. The facts are right in front of them where they're getting so-called radicalized. So law enforcement officials, we ask you, are these lone wolves reading the Hadith? When you go to the computer history or the library, the physical library, the books of one of these so-called lone wolves after they've committed a crime, are they reading the Hadith? Are they reading the biographies of Muhammad written by Ibn Ishaq or Ibn Kathir or Al-Tabari? Do you see underlines in the books where they've read the stories and go, yeah, take your study guide, the Quran and the Sunnah, as the Chattanooga killer said? If they are, you've got your motive right there in front of you for these lone wolves. They have the same motive that fuels the terrorists of ISIS, even if they never speak with someone from ISIS. So what motivates lone wolves in their acts of murder and terror is their desire to obey and to imitate Muhammad and to attempt to please Allah by committing acts of murder and terror to coerce the world to submit to the demands of Muhammad, the founder of Islam, just like Muhammad did in the windswept deserts of Saudi Arabia, or of Arabia, of the Arabian Peninsula, 1,400 years ago. So if law enforcement officials want to identify lone wolves before they strike, they might not need to spend quite so much time trying to connect dots to ISIS. Maybe they could save themselves a lot of work, and they could identify dangerous threats a lot quicker by seeing who's reading the story of Amr from Ibn Ishaq or from Al-Tabari and other stories like this, because that's where they're getting their motivation. That's where they're getting their marching orders. What Would Muhammad Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, "I learned more from What Would Muhammad Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life." Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, "What Would Muhammad Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Muhammad and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced." Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700, or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Over the years, I've had the privilege of interviewing some incredible guests, like Dr. Alan Keyes, former ambassador to the United Nations, like Dr. Alveda King, niece of the slain civil rights activist Dr. Martin Luther King, and Judge Roy Moore, two-time head of the Supreme Court in Alabama. These interviews are so powerful, so memorable, and so inspirational. We have decided to make them available to you on 2 DVDs for only a gift of $15. That's it. If you love this ministry, you want to support us, and you want these to show to your family and friends, or just for yourself, to watch at your leisure, get them today. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700. Friend, this is Islamic terrorism. And this is why the Chattanooga shooter or the man who beheaded poor Colleen in Oklahoma, this is why these men just seem to appear out of nowhere. They don't have to go to an ISIS training camp. Do you understand? All they have to do is read the Quran and the Hadith. And it tells them what to do. It gives them their marching orders. You don't have to go to a Bible college or a seminary to understand that Jesus wants you to be gracious to the poor. Right? Just read the Gospels. If you can read in your mother tongue and you can understand what you're reading, then you can understand some of the things that Jesus wants you to do. Okay? It's not that hard to figure out. In Islamic terrorism, we're facing the same reality, only it's dark. If somebody reads the Gospels and they go off the deep end, what do? They give away all their stuff. Right? They say, I'm going to become a poor beggar and I'm going to give all my stuff to beggars and then I'm going to go preach the gospel in poverty. They go and hang out with Sisters of Charity. They follow the example of Mother Teresa or of St. Francis. Or they become, if they're a Baptist, they become a great preacher like Charles Spurgeon. Or if they're Methodist, they become a circuit rider like Jonathan Wesley. They read the Gospels, and then they follow the example they see laid out by Christ and the apostles, or by extension, they follow the example of some of their heroes of the faith. That's what Muslims do. But they just have a different story. Okay? Jesus died to start Christianity. Muhammad killed to start Islam. And Muslims can read. They can see that. That's the phenomenon called lone wolves. They read the Quran. They read the Hadith. They read the biographies of Muhammad, the canonical biographies, such as Ibn Ishaq's work. And then they say, oh, I see. If I go kill infidels and I face them and I don't turn away from them, and I get killed while I'm killing them, I'll die and go to paradise. I'll please Allah. My blood, when it begins to run, when I'm in the presence of God, will be the color of blood, but it'll be the smell of musk, an aphrodisiac. Oh, I'll get virgins as my sexual slaves up in heaven. Oh, I understand. They don't have to speak Arabic. They don't have to go to an ISIS training camp in Libya or in Iraq. All they have to do is read the material. That's why we put this series together, friends, so that you could understand what we are fighting. I hope that you've been watching this. This is a 24-part series that we've been doing on TV, okay? And if you want to understand Islam, you're not going to get a better source. You are literally, all of the reviews, the people who have been gone on the record and said they've reviewed it. These are experts in Islam. All of them, to the man, have said this is the best series that's ever been created. Period. So if you want to know the truth about Islam and you want to tell others, get this series. And if you cannot afford the $35 for one set, send us a note, send us a check for whatever you can afford. And we'll send it to you. The whole series. You just have to promise to watch it, and then when you're done, give it to your pastor.
take us up on the offer. You're not going to get a better one anywhere else. God bless you.